Joe here on MSNBC. Coulter got animated when Joe asked again about that controversial column from 2003 in which she joked that John Edwards had a bumper sticker saying, "Ask me about my son's death."
I have written 5 New York Times bestsellers. People like the way I write. I comment on America in a lively and entertaining way. These are legitimate topics, and I'm a little sick of being browbeaten by a bunch of harridans about why I chose this word or why I told that joke. And then people turn around and say, "Oh, and you're so mean, you're so mean."
Well, Ann, I'm not browbeating you here. I'm trying to put it in proper context.
Well, you haven't spent 24 hours being asked, "Oh, why did you use this word?" Okay. I've never seen people avoid ideas so much in such an obvious way and try to alert Americans not to read anything, not to listen to something someone says, not because of what she's saying, but by trying to portray her as a Nazi. This happens every time I put a book out, and I'm getting a little bored with it. To use a Smith College word, it's getting a little tiresome.
This week, Coulter has been promoting her paperback version of her latest book, Godless. The death of an innocent man in a violent crash in Los Angeles has left his family grieving and critics asking, did he have to die? The man's truck was rammed by a stolen car driven by a man who was fleeing sheriff's deputies. Now, the deputies had actually stopped their pursuit shortly before the crash, but the suspect didn't stop until the accident. NBC's Mike Taibbi joins us from Burbank, California. And Mike, what are officials saying this morning about how deputies handled this case?
Well, so far, Chris, what they're saying is that there aren't any serious or obvious questions about whether or not violations of local guidelines in Los Angeles are at the root of this. You just saw some of the video there, and that's one of the issues here, that every time there's a police chase, and there are about 7,000 or 8,000 of them a year across California, a really car-crazy state, every time there's a police chase, the traffic choppers hear about it over the scanners, and you see pictures like the ones you're looking at right now. In this instance, here were the circumstances. It was about 7 in the morning. It was a stop in South LA, a traffic stop. Police checked the license plate, found out it was a vehicle reported stolen at gunpoint, that is to say carjacked, 2 hours earlier. They went to try to make an arrest or at least a stop. At that point, the 2 suspects in the car, the driver and a passenger, fled on Century Boulevard. And after about 23 seconds, according to the police report I reviewed again this morning, the watch commander called off the chase, because even though there was very little in the way of vehicular or pedestrian traffic at that hour of the morning, he deemed it too dangerous to continue the pursuit. And that's the prerogative of both the pursuing police officer and his watch commander or supervisor. The chase was stopped after 23 seconds, but the vehicle, according to the police report, crossed the traffic lines, ran head-on into the pickup truck you can see in that picture. The driver of that pickup truck, a 46-year-old father of 3 named Miguel Falcone, was pinned in his vehicle and pronounced dead about 10 minutes later at the scene. That is the circumstance, and there's a law in the state which essentially protects police agencies and departments from liability. Some critics call it a get-out-of-liability-free card in cases like this, as long as the guidelines are followed. And in this case, so far, the official word is that the guidelines were followed. These were clearly potentially dangerous suspects. A gunpoint carjacking 2 hours earlier reported. Those 2 16-year-olds are now under arrest. Chris?
What are the specific guidelines, Mike? I know in general courts have ruled a suspect must pose a significant threat for police to pursue him or her or them. What does it say in writing in Los Angeles?
Well, there are a lot of points about the guidelines, but generally it's all intuitive and common sense. If, for example, as the police commissioner Bill Bratton once put it, a broken taillight is observed on a suspect's vehicle, that's not a reason for a police pursuit, certainly not on a crowded urban street. And you can go down the list of what the factors might be that would initiate a chase, allow police to continue that chase, cause them ultimately to call it off if circumstances are deemed to be too dangerous. And across this state, there are hundreds of people injured every year, and about 16 to 18 on average deaths of all people involved, the suspects, the police officers, and innocent bystanders or drivers, has happened in this case. So far, it looks like the guidelines were followed in this case.
Mike, always good to see you. Thank you.
All right, Chris.
Flash flood warnings now extend from Texas to Missouri. The Texas National Guard is helping families evacuate flooded areas. People are being plucked off of cars and rooftops. Marble Falls, Texas had 1.5 feet of rain yesterday alone. WeatherPlus.com meteorologist Jackie Moretsky is tracking this morning's worst weather. So, Jackie, where will today's flooding be the most severe?
Well, you mentioned Marble Falls. That's in San Antonio. It's raining there now, and they've got the worst weather in America because of all of the rain that's already fallen, and that upper level low continuing to sit right in the heart of Texas. The flash flood warnings do include San Antonio as well as Austin, Chris. And one of the biggest